tell me when to vibe on there. You just gonna set it up. I was just waiting for those horns. Should be coming soon, right? What you feeling down for? No, I like that. Just vibing right now. Don't be sad. The sun is shining. The angels are dancing in heaven. You hear me?
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up. Listen, Father God, in your name I pray. Help the people find their way. Better days are coming by and by. We can make it if we try. Come on. Wake up the people, Lord, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Father God, in your name I pray. Help the people find their way. Look around and then I see a little old man and a homeless lady. They don't have no food to eat. Father, give them a warm place to sleep. Come on, wake up the people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Wake up the people, wake up. Wake up, people, wake up now. Storms will come and storms will go. The earth may quake and still the souls of the ones we love, and some will die.
Some shall
But
die.
they're in heaven, so dry your eyes.
Dry your eyes.
Celebrate life.
Don't you cry.
Jump for joy.
Jump for joy.
Like a baby with a toy.
Little baby.
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up. Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up.
Dry your eyes.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up now.
Yes, good afternoon, Bless FM family. It's another Sunday afternoon, and it's another Afrocentricity book show. Remember, 4 till 6 every Sunday, we look at the best books from an African-centered point of view. Today we'll still be continuing our reading of the book called Ma'at, The Moral Ideal in Ancient Egypt by Malenga Karenga. He's the creator of Kwanzaa, Dr. Maulana Karenga. I must remind you that this show is sponsored by Glass R Us, 730 Seven Sisters Road, N15, 5NH. You can get them on 0208 800 6663. That is 0208 800 6663. Please go to Glass R Us for all your glazing needs, whether it's double glazing, repairs to shelving, tabletops, splashbacks, mirrors, shower cubicles, you name it. If you mention this show, you'll get a 10% discount off all your glazing needs. So please go to Glass R Us, 730 Seven Sisters Road, N15, 5NH, and then you can get them on anytime 0208 800 6663. Glass are us. Okay, so I hope everybody's had a good week this week here. Hope it hasn't been too stressful. Sunday, hoping most of you are relaxing at home. Remember, we're going to get to the good stuff now. It's very important that we wake up ourselves. Many of us are in a slumber. We're not quite sure what's going on because we look at the world through the eyes of other people. So the Afrocentricity book show, one of the key factors of it is that we begin to look at the world through our own eyes. So Ma'at, the moral ideal in ancient Egypt, Malana Krenga. I'll be continuing with chapter 5. But please remember, the studio number is 07944 431 366. Again, the studio number, please hope you got a pen, 07944 431 366. Please text in, phone in anytime. Any comments, any questions, any of your views about what's happening, yeah? But I'm reading Ma'at. So to give everybody who hasn't been listening to this past few weeks, Ma'at is a concept from the ancient African world. And it is a concept which underlies all religions. All religions come out of this concept. And it's not a statement of fantasy, it's a statement of fact. All religions come out of the concept of Ma'at. So what is Ma'at? Ma'at is an ethical principle, yeah, a moral principle. The first religious writings, as many of you know, comes from Africa. The first time people talk about God, rebirth, dying, going to heaven, about moral conduct, doing the right thing, ethical behavior, it was in Africa. First time. So this concept of Ma'at is many, many thousands of years old. Many thousand years older than Judaism, Christianity, Islam, you name it, Buddhism, yeah, all these religions. So I'm going to continue with chapter 5, Ma'at. Please phone in if you want any questions at all. And don't forget the studio number is 07944 431 366. So I'm going to continue with chapter 5. Please text in, call in if you've got any comments. So chapter 5, Ma'atian ontology. So ontology means it's a philosophical concept. It is the nature of being. What is, yeah, ontology. Nature of being, what the study of the being of nature, what is. So one writer argues that the main task of the moral theory is critical attention to moral metaphysics. So what is metaphysics? Meta, more is more, and physics is like the physical world. So metaphysics, more than physics, is really about spiritual things, yeah, things what not really of this realm. So comparing this concept to Kant, metaphysics of morals, which is meant to investigate the ideas and principles of pure will. He suggests a task of investigating the metaphysical prepositions of the moral tradition. He thus defines moral metaphysics as an inquiry into the underlying conception of a moral tradition in terms of its worldview or vision of the relation between the world and human affairs and the natural order. In Confucianism, which is Confucian there from the Asia, Tao is that conceptual focus for such an inquiry. But in the Ma'atian tradition, remember this is ancient African tradition, in the Ma'ati tradition, Ma'at is such a point of orientation both for ethics and ontology of the tradition. In fact, it is the ground of their interrelatedness. So this chapter, chapter 5 I'm on, then will offer a critical discussion of Ma'atian ontology and its interrelatedness to Ma'atian ethics, especially in terms of its serving the locus of the metaphysical presumptions, which underpin and inform the Ma'atian ethical tradition. So Ma'at is first an ontological conception, but its ethical implications loom just as large on the ancient Egyptian intellectual horizon. So in fact, its ontological and ethical meaning are interrelated and must be studied as such. So indeed, central to the understanding of the ground of ethics and related critical questions is the comprehension of the ontological foundations. So one writer argues the roots of moral imperative, the criteria of its validity, the sources of its content, and the forces for realization. All this can be elaborated only in terms of an analysis of man's being and universal being. In a word, the answer to each of these questions is directly or indirectly dependent on the doctrine of being. However, it is important to note that analytical reflection of the ethical significance of the Ma'atian ontology is in no way suggests an equation of ethics and ontology. So obviously he's speaking very kind of academic here at the moment. So let me continue. The essential concern here then is not with equating ethics and ontology or simply defining qualities of being, but rather demonstrating the moral significance of these qualities in the ethical thought and practice of the ancient Egyptians. For in the final analysis, the ancient Egyptians' fundamental, even prior ethical concern is not ontological, i.e. that's the nature of being, but experiential and practical. So it's things they've experienced and things they practice. So i.e. concerned with defining and living a good life, of being a worthy member of the family and community, and of creating and sustaining the just and the good. So just remind you, Ma'at means, when you see Ma'at written, depends on the context, but it means of truth, justice, balance, harmony, reciprocity, unity, doing the right thing, righteousness, rightness. Yeah, that is all the concept of Ma'at. Yeah, in many people just general life, it means the truth, speaking the truth and doing ethical behavior. So our focus here then is on the fundamental standing of Ma'atian ethics. Our focus and assumptions upon which the ancient Egyptians grounded their ethics. The assumptions about the nature of existence or of the universe, of God and of humans. The latter of which I will deal with in the next chapter on Ma'atian anthropology. For at the heart of both of these assumptions and the ethics which evolve from them is the ontological principle of Ma'at. So a discussion of this subject is necessary, begins with ancient Egyptian on cosmology and cosmology, which is founded especially in the creation narratives and offer several basic motives, both ontological and moral. Certainly among the most important are the pyramid texts, and obviously the Papyrus of Bremer, the Book of the Knowing of Creations, the Shabaka text, the Book of Gates, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. So these are all books, ancient texts which still are extant, still around today from the ancient Nile Valley. So there's many books we can use to study the ethical position of these ancient Africans. Some of the most definitive and useful works are on the philosophy of Kemetic creation narratives, which aid this project are James Allen, Genesis in Egypt, Theophile Abenga's African Philosophy of the Pharaonic Period, are the key two he mentions here. So between the Kemetic concepts and similar concepts, which is very similar to African societies, my interest is in interpretation which offers both grounds on which to dialogue and which to contend. So let me move on. So let me go on. So first of all, 5.2 now, the potentiality and power of being. So creative becoming. So the first basic motive of Ma'atian ontology is the potentiality and power of the being, or of being. At the time of creation, God, the creative force, exists as an inactive circle or seed or spiritual matter energy immersed and floating in one of infinity and pre-creation. So they're saying before creation actually became, God's energy, his creative force, was sitting dormant in what's the ancient Egyptians called the noon, which is like a water, a gaseous kind of entity in darkness. So the creator, in his name, Atum, is floating in the waters without movement. But it's very important to say that Atum has got all the creative power needed to create the world. But pre-creation, He's just kind of sitting there, floating there in this watery mass, inertness, and alone. So thus he describes it as a time when I was alone with the waters, in inertness. The process of creation, as a text show, leads to transformation of darkness into light, i.e. sending forth light and giving a brilliance to darkness, fluidity into concreteness, and producing the vault of heaven and what it is and what is in it, as well as on earth. Invisibility then into visible forms, and unboundedness into boundlessness, through Ma'at, the very embodiment of the order. Thus the Creator in his name, Atun, says, I am the begetter of repeated millions out of the flood, out of water, out of darkness, out of unboundedness. And that's what the text says. It is these pre-creation elements containing both male and female dimensions, which are called Heminu, which is the primeval 8. So these the 8 powers, they said, which is in these waters called the Noon. In the Coven text of the Middle Kingdom, they mention these. So in the New Kingdom, the theologians of Hermopolis developed a more expansive creation discourse, incorporating and building on those 4 concepts. They also incorporated the concept of invisibility as one of the 4 pairs of primordial divinities and conditions of pre-creation. Following this, I have, in this discussion, used Amun, or invisibility, as one of pre-creation conditions, and have collapsed the flood and waters into concept of fluidity. So this is done to stress the potentiality of movement in a condition of fluidity, or more precisely liquidity. For primal ocean of pre-creation does not flow, it is simply inert, yet pregnant, with the possibilities of repeated millions. So he's saying there that the water is just sitting there inert, but within this water, the water is pregnant itself with all the powers, all the possibilities to create the world, to create the universe. Moreover, these pre-creation elements are the same time, powers, principles, and material out of which the world is made, but again all simply potentiality, an infinite ocean of possibilities. And it is in such a situation that the Creator first conceptualizes and then actualizes himself in the world. So the Creator, he created himself out of this inert water, and this water has male and female properties in there. It's not like a male dominated thing. The male God came and created. It is the water is full of male and female principles, which are the essential material to create the universe. So Theophile Benga notes that the beginning of all beginnings is the Noon, the absolute waters which contain the seeds of creative power, the ocean anterior to every manifestation of life and movement, the prior world which holds within it every manifestation in the form of the Creator God. This fundamental concept of the centrality of the water and its creative potentiality, he asserts, is pervasive in Africa, including such societies as the Dogon, the Bambara, the Akan people, and the Venda. Thus this is Theophile Benga, states that from Pharaonic Egypt up to the present day, Black African thought has explained the origins of existence through the concept of primeval waters. And what is key to these various African concepts is the fluidity and promise in a word, as Abenga notes, a milieu of forms in waiting. Thus one has here the conception of possibility, inherent in existence itself, in its very structure and functioning. The moral implications of this lie both in the optimism, structure and functioning. This supports the dynamic character of life it suggests and requires, for the inherent potentiality of being is open to the human person for both development and transcendence. Another metaphor of potentiality is the Creator's self-description as a circle, a seed in his egg, a circle in his egg. The Kemetic conception of the Creator parallels the Dogon conception of Amma, the Creator who, in one conception, is the egg of the universe. In the Dogon cosmogony, when they say cosmogony is like basically the story of how the world was created. In the Dogon cosmogony, Amma was the egg of the universe, and the universe and Amma were one. And as an egg, Amma symbolized and was fertility and unlimited creative possibility. Moreover, in Dogon cosmogony, in the beginning, everything that would be already potentiality or potentially was. The substance and structure of the universe was in Amma, the supreme God, who was in the image of an egg and divided into 4 quarters containing the 4 basic elements of air, earth, fire and water, and the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east and west. So through creative thought, speech and effective action, Amma traced within himself the design and developmental course of the universe, using 266 cosmic signs which contain the essence, structure and the life principles of all things. Below we shall see how creative thought, Asiya, and authoritative utterance, Hu, H-U, also play a role in the ancient Egyptian concept of creation. The conceptual image of an egg as a field and ground of potentiality is also found in other African societies, such as the Bambara, the Fali, and the Abori. For a Benga, this cosmic egg in Kemet is a correct name for ancient Egypt, by the way. The cosmic egg in Kemet and other African societies is the morning of the world, being born, becoming. In other words, the egg expresses here the idea of wholeness, of perfection, of integrity, purity, of youth and life. And this egg, as it potentially points to the future, the world it will bring to life. The central thrust here is again to posit the field and ground of possibility, potentiality, and the conception of an egg and the ocean offers fertility, fertile conceptual images. Inherent in this egg and the ocean of possibilities, then, are all the elements necessary for creation. But it is the creator who, in developing himself, i.e. that he was self-created, in developing himself, brings being as an active process of development into being. In the book of Knowing the Creations, the Creator says, I came into being as the bringer into being. When I came into being, being itself came into being. All being came into being after I came into being. This posits being an active process as opposed to an inert existence which characterized pre-creation. A writer states that although Kepra is often translated as coming or come or evolve, coming into being, the actual Egyptian sense is closer to mean change, development and evolve. So they said that the earliest, every morning when the sun rises, they call the sun Kepra. Means that he evolved, he changed, he transformed every morning to the rising sun. So the idea of Kepra is that a beginning process, so moving from one form into another form, a development. All developed developed after I developed, will be another way to say that text. Whereas I agree with Alan that Kepra can and does mean change, develop and evolve, I have not used this meaning for the translations and conceptual discourse. As with all multiple meaning words, what is key here is context. And in this context, I prefer the category being to indicate the ontological and to develop the point of being as an active ontological process, Kepra, rather than inert or general state of existence. For inherent in ancient Egyptian conception of being is the notion of activity, which in turn suggests life as biology as well as energy and movement. The kind of being I emphasize here is best described as becoming, another of the multiple meanings of Kepra. Kepra, let me say, will sometimes symbolize as a scarab beetle, and you see him like with a disc in his hands, which is how he used to push the sun across the sky. So once set in motion, the universe and all that exists is in a constant and eternal process of becoming. And it is this category of becoming that is at the heart of the concept of the potentiality of being and is key to understanding its ethical significance. The creator becomes active, and in his becoming active, he subtracts the primeval waters from himself. This begins a process of differentiation, central to creation. Thus, creation is not construction out of nothingness, but differentiating and ordering that which exists and making it active. The creator brings himself into being as a self-developing God through mind, will, speech, and effective action. Thus, he says, "It was through my effectiveness that I brought about my body. I am the one who made me. It was as I wished, or as I willed, according to my mind, that I constructed myself." So it was his, I should say here, his thought. He thought he was going to bring himself into creation, and then he created himself. This is the ancient Egyptian philosophical thought from the philosophical priests. Yeah, and this is the first. Remember, say this creation story I'm talking about. This is the first creation story in history. There are none earlier than this. And when you listen to the words, you can see when you see creation stories in the Bible, you can see this is the foundation of it all. But this is much deeper because this is thousands of years of philosophical writing from these priests in the high temples of ancient Egypt along the Nile Valley, and all these other people came there really to learn, and that's where they developed their conceptions from. So another writer suggests that Kepra are categories indicating change from latent to manifest life potential, and that being is transformed into a realized being. He understands the conception of self-transformation and self-transcendence as open to the human person in spiritual forms as Ka and Ba and Ak. So that's your heart soul, your spirit soul, and Ak is like your strength to reinvent yourself. But since, as he says, all of these categories denote the human person as a living being, and that which transcends in man's life, an extension of this concept to the ethical and social realm is both possible and necessary. The divine, therefore, becomes for humans an image of possibility and a model to emulate, as argued here and below in chapter 6, Martin Anthropology. So let me say, this concept, Kepra, is the ability for us to transform, to change into another thing. Yeah, and I think this is a very important concept for us. Yeah, because sometimes we got problems and we think, what should I do? And I don't know what to do. But we all have the power within us. We all have Kepra within us to transform ourselves, to become whatever we decide to come. That's why it's impossible that we understand this information, because we're not going to be taught this in our schools and universities. Yeah, they'll give you a lot of stuff about Greeks, but this stuff is like 5,000 years before the Greeks came to Egypt to be educated by the Egyptians, okay? It is through will. And again, another important thing there, because when we look at the creation story, he used his mind to create everything. And again, that's why we need to understand these concepts, because what we conceive in our mind, we can bring into being. That's why these concepts are so powerful. It's not just a creation story like we learn in science. We need to bring this stuff into our own culture, into our today's culture, and use these concepts for us to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our communities. So it says here that he willed himself into being, and then he willed creation and used his voice to utter and bring creation into being. So these are very important concepts for us. So it is through will, mind, heart, and effectiveness that the Creator creates himself. And it is this ontological model that informs the ethical and indeed the ontological understandings of human possibility. As the ethical texts repeatedly state, I made my character. In a word, I made myself into what I am. This is a clear affirmation of human agency, informed by theological conceptions of clear affirmations of human agency, clear theological conceptions of creation and the inherent potentiality of being. Furthermore, the Creator says, I made everything I wished in this land. I expanded. I'm out of it. Here then is the question of mind and heart conceiving. The ancient Egyptians used to say heart was their mind. I think everything that you did was in your heart. That is what they believed. So heart and mind to them was the same thing. So conceiving, willing, and bringing into being. Moreover, the creation process is defined as one in which bringing oneself into being brings other things into being. One in which one expands in the world in the process of becoming. It is thus a concept of self-creation, which is at the same time world creation, i.e. creating the world we live in and will. And the fundamental ground for this process is Ma'at, as we have seen and will return to frequently. Because the concept from ancient from the Nile Valley is that Ma'at was created when the universe created, and this concept of Ma'at which structured the world, structured the universe. It is important to note that here that the creation unfolds and is expressed in the metaphors of biology more than physics. Thus, in various texts, the Creator brings into being the male and female principles, his offspring through exhaling, i.e. sneezing, spitting, and orgasm. The other divine powers and principles are given birth, and the primordial divine powers are posed as mothers and fathers who create light, whose Ra, or atom, is an egg and or seed which is fertile with possibilities of growth and development, and creation begins with a dialogue between God and the waters in which he exists. This metaphorical mode of knowing and of explaining the origin of things is seen by many Egyptologists as simply a reflection of the mythopoeic character of ancient Egyptian thought. But, seen another way, it reflects the perception of the universe or cosmos as an organismic process rather than a mechanical one. It is here that one writer emphasizes that Kepra as growth and development is most insightful and instructive, for again, the universe is alive with the activity and promise of becoming. Another writer states the process of creation begins as a dialogue between non-existence and potentiality. So one coffin text says, I want to call it a coffin text because we find a lot of these texts on the coffins where people pass away, and they used to write these texts on the outside and even inside of their coffins. And it's from these texts we understand a lot of concept of how they view the world, their own ontology, their concepts of being, how the world began, and man's kind of position in this. So the coffin text says in the dialogue, then Atum, the creator, said off to the waters, I am floating and very weary, and the original ones are inert. It is my Son, life, who will lift up my heart, that will animate my heart, when he has gathered together those weary members of mine. So here the principle of life is said to be the Son of the Creator, who will lift up and nourish the Creator's heart and mind. This is an interesting conception, for it reaffirms in a metaphorical way that the Creator produces the life principle that lifts and animates him. Thus, he is the source of life that makes him live and gathers his parts into oneness that he becomes. Again, the anthropological significance of these parts the anthropological significance of this is a reaffirmation of agency, the capacity of self-construction. The text continues, stressing the centrality of Ma'at to existence and life. It says, and this is what the ancient text says, the waters said to Atum, kiss your daughter Ma'at, place her at your nose, and your heart will live, for she is not far from you. Ma'at is your daughter, with your son Shu, whose name is life. It is from your daughter Ma'at that you shall take nourishment. It is your son Shu who will lift you up. So again, they're saying Ma'at is the daughter of the Creator, which means morality, ethics, doing the right thing, harmony. So he's saying that she's life, because hold her to your nose and she will give you life. She'll make you live. So it's very powerful information here. They say morality will make you live. And this is the God, the creator of the world. So obviously people below this should obviously adopt these same kind of ideas as well. So in this passage, Shu is, in the creation story, Shu is like the divine principle which brings the air. So in this passage, Shu remains life, but Ma'at is posed as the essence of life, indeed the ground of life. Thus, the concepts of eating, absorbing or assimilating Ma'at for spiritual nourishment is introduced. Here it is introduced as a practice and necessity of God, for Ma'at is that by which God lives and is satisfied. Therefore Ma'at must be constantly offered to God, a practice which is both spiritual and ethical. And let me say to you, if I interrupt very quickly, the priests in ancient Egypt, they'd have a small statue of Ma'at, which was symbolized as a goddess with a feather on her head. He had a feather of truth. And in virtually every single temple of ancient Egypt, every morning, whichever the divine being of that temple was, they would hold a statue of Ma'at and offer it to that divine being, which shows you that every divine being lived on Ma'at, which is a very powerful statement. So in the ethical text, offering Ma'at to God is both an ethical obligation and an ontological practice, for it reaffirms and reinforces Ma'at in the world. Over and against Isfet, remember Isfet is opposite of Ma'at, over and against Isfet, and thus reinforces existence, good, stability, harmony, and other positive features of being. In this process of offering Ma'at, both as a ritual and ethical practice, one participates in a cosmic process. Thus is linked with the ongoing project of the maintenance and development of the world. As one writer notes, to the ancient Egyptians, Ma'at was thus more than only the principle of universal order. It was an integral part, an inseparable aspect of the cosmos, i.e. the universe, without which the cosmos would not have existed. Doing Ma'at then points towards locating and understanding oneself in the concept of the larger whole. And this has a great significance for both social and environmental ethics. For to be a participant in such a context and process is an ongoing challenge to determine and maintain right relationships in the various spheres of activity and interaction which constitute the realm of being and becoming. So let me remind you that this is the Afrocentricity Book Show. The studio number is 07944 431 366. 07944 431 366. So if you've got any comments, please text in, please phone in, and we can talk about it yet. So let me continue. Central also then to the creative process is its ethical emulation, its establishing place. In the creator's account of his creation, it states in one coffin text that he was alone in the unboundedness of pre-creation infinity and could not find a place in on which I could sit or stand. So this happens, and this is what the text says, before the sacred city of On had been founded and might dwell in it, before the lotus had been tied that I might sit on it, before I made heaven so she could be over my head and earth, and Geb could marry her. So again he's saying that there was nothing around. There's nowhere, God is saying there's nowhere I could sit, nowhere I could stand, nowhere I could rest my head, because heaven, earth, nothing had been created yet. Finding no place on which to stand or sit, he becomes a mound in and for himself. Having surveyed in his heart the situation and the possibilities inherent in it, and is from this primordial mound, this location in and of himself, that the Creator designed and brought into being the whole universe. Thus the Creator in his name, Ptah, Ptah is like the Creator of the universe. Ptah is not a God individual by himself, he is an aspect of the Creator. Is called the placemaker. In one of his many praise poems, the hymn Ptah says, the text says, "Hail to you before your primordial ones, you created after you came into being as God. The body who built his body himself, before heaven came into being, before earth came into being, before the waters were introduced, you tied together the world, you brought together your flesh, you considered your parts, you found yourself alone. God who fashioned the two lands." The two lands is basically ancient Egypt, they call it the two lands. "You joined yourself together, active one, who came forth active. You stood up on the land in this inertness, and you pulled itself together afterwards, you being in the form of Tatanen." So the idea is that because there was nowhere to stand, God created the first bit of earth. He created a mound to stand on. And from this place, he created the cosmos. From this place he could stand on. So this is called the primordial mound, the first mound. So this context contains a rich array of images of self-agency. When they say agency, it means doing it yourself. You didn't need rely on anybody else to do it. One of the important aspects of Afrocentricity is that we must see ourselves as African people as having agency. The way we are depicted in the schools is that we did nothing before other people came to us in Africa. We sit down quietly and we did nothing until other people came there. The slave trade picked us up and took us to the New World because we did nothing. So the way we are taught is that we have no agency. Everybody else has agency except for us. But when we understand these texts, we can see that the first agency was us. There was nobody else around. And the concept here, when we created the universe, remember the first writing I read to you about the construction of the universe shows you that we had self-agency and we created this whole concept. So the word allows a range of meanings. So Faulkner lists these meanings as alertness, effectiveness, or translation as active is an excellent choice which combines in the context of both alertness in opposition to inertness and effectiveness in thought and practice. Also the creator, as in other creation narratives, creates the world out of his own body, distinguishing the parts of him for diversity and joining together in continuity. This place-making aspect of Ptah, the creator, is reflected in his depiction as being in the form of Tatanen. Tatanen is a divine being, a divine power, who first appears in the literature during the Middle Kingdom of Kemet, of ancient Egypt. His name means or translates as land that becomes increasingly distinct. Refers to the primeval mound on which the Creator stood to carry out the process of creation. He is associated with Ptah in the time of Ramesses II, which is like the New Kingdom of Kemet. The point here again is that the Creator in the form of Tatanen is his own mound, for he is the land that becomes increasingly distinct, and thus in his own grounding. It is an important ontological principle of creation that the Creator is internally grounded, so that when he stood up, the land drew together or formed a mound. The concept of internal grounding in creation expresses itself ethically as a Ma'atian grounding and agency. For as the moral presentation in the chapters above demonstrate, it is one's ma'at, one's character, one's virtue, one's heart, which goes on to do good, brings honour, causes one to speak truth and to do justice. In a word, it is one's internal grounding that causes one to become what one ought to be. This place-making or locating or grounding oneself then is the key to Ma'atian ethics. For as the moral self-presentations above in chapter 2 and 3 show, this was a continuing concern for ancient Egyptians, ancient Africans. One always acts ethically in a given context. One is worthy in one's own family, town, city or district. One speaks truth there, does justice there, and walks in the way of righteousness there. Thus one is socially and morally grounded here. Location is also another way to discuss the ethical tradition itself, for one is always concerned about following in the footsteps of the ancestors, and this is how you know these are African people, i.e. honouring the tradition of the ancestors. Place-making then is both a creative and ethical concept and poses the ongoing challenge to ground oneself in that context, on that more primordial mound, to act morally and creatively. So I hope you're understanding that they're saying what the Creator did, we should do ourselves. Furthermore, the hymn to Ptah, this is spelled P-T-A-H, the hymn to Ptah defines the Creator as an active one who came forth active. It goes on to say that when you stood up on the land in its inertness, it drew together thereafter, you being in the form of Tatanen. This reference contains two concepts basic to Martin ethics. One, actively standing up, and two, being internally grounded. The Creator comes forth active, stands up in the land and its inertness, and in doing so causes the land to draw together. Here the centrality of concrete practice, of standing up and acting, is affirmed. Standing up then becomes, both in the mortuary and ethical literature, a paradigm of spiritual and ethical behaviour. To stand up like Ptah or Haru in coming forth is then a fundamental way of coming into life, to becoming active. Very powerful there. So if you think of Bob Marley's song, Get Up, Stand Up, I think this is what he's saying now, actively standing up and becoming internally grounded, because this is what the Creator did at ancient times. So when you get up, it means you're active. We are not tourists on this land. We all need to stand up and do the right thing, and that's the whole concept of Ma'at. We have to do the right thing. We don't have any choice. So ethically speaking, standing up and being active means being creative in a word and in deed, bringing good into the world and lessening evil. This is what Kunup said. Modern Martin ethics, building on the ethical teachings of Malcolm X in 1965, finds its ethical formula of doing right. Malcolm X said, wake up, clean up and stand up. Just like Bob Marley said, get up for your rights. A fruitful extension of the original Martin concept. Malcolm's three-pronged ethical interpretation is one of coming into consciousness, morally grounding oneself, and then engaging in a moral practice to bring good and to lessen evil in the world. It thus recalls the creator's grounding himself in Ma'at, in his standing up to create a universe based on Ma'at. The ontological, remember ontological means the theory of being, the nature of things. The ontological and ethical dimensions of the process are thus intertwined. For as Kununup said, doing Ma'at is not only doing good, it is increasing good and lessening evil in the world. Which is very powerful. Therefore, he says, one who lessens falsehood brings Ma'at into being, and one who brings good into being destroys evil. So this can be translated as to create, and thus the passage could read, one who diminishes evil creates Ma'at, and one who creates good destroys evil. The point is that good is created and evil is lessened or destroyed when one stands up and does Ma'at. It's very, very powerful, very deep there, I believe. So it's very important we read these ancient texts so we understand how people, this is our ancestors, how they viewed the world and the things they did. So I'm going to take a short break now. Hours just passed of the show. Hope you're enjoying the show. Please text in with your comments. Yep. Remember the studio number is 07 944 431 366. That is 07 944 431 366. Remember, this is the Afrocentricity Show. It's every Sunday between 4 and 6 o'clock. And this show is sponsored by Glass R Us, 730 Seven Sisters Road, N15 5NH. And you can get them on 0208 800 6663. Glass R Us, you can get them on 0208 800 6663. You go to them for any of your glazing needs, glass repairs, double glazing, shelving, tabletops, splashbacks, mirrors, shower cubicles, any glass needs, they can sort you out there. Glass R Us, 730 Seven Sisters Road, 0208 800 6663. So we're going to take a short break there. I'm going to play a little bit of music for you, and then we'll be right back again. Afrocentricity Show.
What, the Black Nation? I love it. From the day I'm born, when it done, no say, my color the first. I know last. So you expect I can search. Rastafari for the youth. Black woman and child, you, yeah. For you I really have so much love. Dollar bills and coins will fade away. Could never make I so proud. Black woman and child, oh yeah. For you I got so much love. Dollar bills and coins will fade away. They could never make I proud. Allowed motherland Africa still remain so fine. Empresses and emperors living from in those times. I know you're the first to give birth and took mankind. Now let me say you're the hurt, being Omega's divine. Yeah. Take out to die and I give thy praise. That's where my covenant will be always. How have you been going through those stages? You've been away for many days. Love, woman and child, you, yeah. For you I really have so much love. Dollar bills and kinds will fade away. Only you could make I proud. Yeah. Black woman and child, you, yeah. For you I really have so much love. Dollar bills and kinds will that never yet make I proud. Who knows who will tread upon your road just to make things great. Oh yeah, you and the children, I see them in front of your face. I say, keep them close as you live, increase their faith. Marcus Garvey don't save him, save the future from AIDS. Oh, 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 natural nature is the way to your needs. You were born as the one to conceive, now let my joy put away your grief. You want a child as smooth as the breeze. Woman and child, you, yeah, yeah, yeah. For you I'm having so much fun, yeah. All the bills and kinds will fade away. They could never put I down. Hey, 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 black woman and child, you, yeah, yeah, yeah. For you I have so much love. All the bills and kinds will fade away. They would never make I proud. Alone, one go standing at your door, dressed in Ethiopian clothes, coming more and more. Oh, what a lovely day! The blessing is so pure. Someone conceive today. Of this I am sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Black woman and child, you, yeah, yeah, yeah. For you have got so much love. All the bills and cries will fade away. That never yet make I proud. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, black woman and child, you, yeah, yeah, yeah. For you I have so much love. All the bills and cries will fade away. That never yet make I proud. Say it aloud. Kamala and Africa still remain so fine. Empresses and emperors living from in those times. I know you're the first to give birth unto mankind. Now let me say you're the earth, Queen Omega's divine. Oh, 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 take I to Zion, I give I praise. That's where my covenant will be always. How have you been going through those days? Dumping away for many years,
yeah. Rastafari, Lord boy, na 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 na, yeah. Rastafari, na 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 na. Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. I face a lot of trials and tribulation, but through all of that I man still stand strong, giving thanks and praise to the Almighty One, and looking forward to reach Mount Zion. And I man say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. They said I don't have no rights in a Babylon, because I don't know how the West was won. Neither I can't change their plan. The West is controlled by the Ku Klux Klan. That's why I say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. Teach the youths them right, but not teach them wrong. Jackal up on the youths, cause the youths are strong. Look to Africa, that I feel your mama land. And down Africa, where you find Mount Zion. And I man say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. Say, Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. I care not what the people of this world want to say, neither what the people of this world want to do. Many are called, but the chosen are few. What you gonna do when Jaja call on you? I man say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. Oh, oh, oh. Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. I faced a lot of trials and tribulation, but through all of that I man still stand strong, still giving praise to the Almighty One, and looking forward to reach Mount Zion. And I man say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. The bingy man him say, Zion, I'm coming home to you. They said I don't have no rights in a Babylon, because I don't know how the West was won. Neither I can't change their plan. The West is controlled by the Ku Klux Klan. Rastaman Zion, I'm coming home to you. Oh, Rasta says Zion, I'm coming home to you. One more time, Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you. I cannot what the people of this world want to say, neither what the people of this world want to do. Many are called, the chosen of you. What you gonna do when Jaja call on you? Rastaman says Zion, I'm coming home to you. Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you.
Black is the color of my skin. Black is the life that I live. And I'm so proud to be the color that God made me. And I just got to say, black is my color. Yeah, be no other. I say black is my color. Yeah, be no other. No. Brown is the color of my eyes, and I've got no reason to disguise. Black is the pride in me for all the world to see, and I just got to say, black is my color. Yeah, be no other. No, I say black is my color. Yeah, be no And I'm so proud to be the color that God made me. But I just got to say, black is my color. Yeah, be no other. I said black is my color. Be no
Yes, welcome back, welcome back. This is the Afrocentricity Book Show. Every Sunday 4 to 6 o'clock, we will look at the best books from African point of view. Essays, lectures, you name it, chapters, yeah? It's very important that we understand Afrocentricity is the concept of we look at the world in our own image and in our own benefit, from our own perspective. We must look at the world through our own eyes. We are fed up now. Look at the world through the eyes of other people. Okay? Afrocentricity is a key concept we all need to adopt. Okay? This is the Afrocentricity Book Show, and it is sponsored by Glass Are Us, 730 Seven Sisters Road, N15 5NH. And you can get them on 0208 800 6663 0208. 800 6663. Go to Glass or Us for any of your glazing needs. Whether it's double glazing, repairs, shelf tops, shelving, tabletops, splashbacks, mirrors, shower cubicles, any of your glazing needs, please mention the show and you get a 10% discount, yeah? Which is not a bad thing nowadays, okay? Christmas is on his way, so any of your glazing needs, if you want to buy any sort of gifts, they will be able to sort you out. So we are continuing our reading of the book called Ma'at, The Moral Ideal in Ancient Egypt, and it's written by Malana Karenga, who is the creator, as many of you know, of the Kwanzaa celebrations, yeah, which will be happening not too long before you know it, yeah. It's every 26th of December for 7 days, 26th of December to the 1st of January. Also, if you'd like to text in, make any comments, the studio number is 079 44 431 366. Again, 079 44 431 366. Okay, my name is Brother Jegna, and we're going to continue with the book Ma'at. And again, Ma'at from ancient concept, which means truth, justice, righteousness, rightness, doing the right thing. Put very simply, harmony, reciprocity. So we continue. This is chapter 5. The ethical import of the potentiality of being in Ma'atian ontology is also expressed in the power of being over non-being and self-affirmation over self-negation. In the creator as a source of substance of all being overcomes non-being, i.e. inactivity, obscurity, indefiniteness, and establishes life in the concepts of order. That which exists in life overcomes that which does not exist, i.e. the inert and obscure, the indefiniteness of pre-creation. Inherent in this metaphor of creation is a concept of potentiality of expressing itself by projecting its power in life. Life in Martin ontology is the key to dynamic being. It is being actualizing oneself through the power of self-assertion and against non-being. In Martin theology and ethics, non-being poses a dual challenge. It is at once a threat and a ground for creative activity. As a threat to unjust and all those things negative to being, especially being as life. So thus the ethical imperative is to constantly overcome non-being by creating, recreating, sustaining and restoring rightness and righteousness, i.e. Ma'at, which is the essence of energy alive. Thus one is challenged to be and act and to speak Ma'at and to do Ma'at, for Ma'at is life, and life is being actualizing itself in a dynamic and internal process. So it's very important that in the Nile Valley they always spoke about creation or recreation was an ongoing process. You don't recreate yourself once and that's it. You don't become something and stay, that's it. The world, every day we become, we recreate ourselves. It's very important to recreate ourselves. Otherwise you become inert, you become ineffective. The ontological and ethical importance of Ma'at as a life-giving and life-sustaining principle and substance is reaffirmed in the ethical texts of ancient Egypt, as well as in other kinds of texts which contain ethical and spiritual paragraphs and passages. Therefore, Kunanupu says, doing Ma'at is breath to the nose. Recalling the creator's act of place Ma'at to his nose to enliven himself and begin the creative process as mentioned above. Moreover, the dialogue between the creator and the primeval waters, in which the creator as Atum is told to take nourishment from his daughter Ma'at and live, is also reaffirmed in other texts as an ethical act of spiritual ritual and offering of ma'at. So moreover, the dialogue between the Creator and seeking nourishment from his daughter is reaffirmed in other texts as an ethical act and spiritual ritual of offering ma'at to God, that he may live and rejoice. The word eat or take nourishment from is again a metaphorical mode of describing assimilation or absorption, and signifies a spiritual assimilation of ma'at as a life-generating and life-sustaining spiritual substance. And thus, Hatshepsut was a queen of the 18th dynasty. She ruled as a king. She says, I have offered ma'at, which he loves, basically to God. I know that he lives by it. It is my bread, and I drink its dew. I am a likeness from his limbs, one with him. So ma'at here represents the ontological unity of God and humans. It is posed not as an actual material substance, but as an ethical, spiritual one. And the offering of ma'at as a ritual is a reaffirmation or a reformation of having ma'at in daily life as ethical practice, as stated above. Both the spiritual ritual and ethical acts are translated as ma'at spiritual nourishment, a spiritual food for the continued life and of the divine, social and natural. In a word, the ethical acts become spiritual and ontological one, in that ma'at, which gives life, reaffirmed being and over against non-being, order over against disorder, and all things good and pure over against all things evil and impure. Therefore again, the life process is central to being, dynamic and eternal, and ma'at stands at the heart and center of ongoing and eternal becoming, or actualizes the state of being, or eternal becoming, basically kepra, eternal becoming and actualization of being. So one writer recognizes that this contention is that life is the change aspect of reality, of being in Egyptian cosmology and ontology, is a correct one. It is a fact that serves as a theoretical basis for understanding ma'at as an active principle, as well as one as order and maintenance. The key concept here is kepra, or kepa, which is best translated as noted as becoming, transforming. Thus, I do not agree with Alan, whose development is circular. So the category kepra, or becoming in Kemetic ontology, does not suggest reoccurrence or eternal sameness. In fact, becoming is a category of eternal unfolding and has ethical implications for concepts of human development and flourishing. It is, in a word, the category of the potentiality of being, of perpetual creation, transformation into a myriad of things like Ra. In fact, one writer suggests an interpretation with this notation. He says that I make developments. It is the Egyptian idiom for growth, i.e., with reference to various stages of development that a human being goes through in life, from baby to adult. Moreover, this is the phrase used also to define spiritual transformation after resurrection. Being born again, I think they're saying there. But Alan does not follow this line of development, and instead chooses to pursue the position that change in the Kemetic worldview is a cyclical concept of eternal reoccurrence and eternal sameness. Alan does not say that, yet within this unchanging and ordered construct, there are also dynamic forces at work. But he goes on to say that although things in the world change, they do so as part of the cyclical pattern that is always the same. This apparently paradoxical union of immutability and change is expressed in the Egyptian concept of eternal reoccurrence, Thus he ends up where he begins, for even his change is sameness. Eternal reoccurrence, not development, i.e. unfolding, bringing the latent into activity or reality, as he translates Kepra in other instances. There is obviously a common sense assumption within even modern cultures, as well as that of Kemet, that things tend to repeat themselves. Therefore, I'm not questioning the presence of such a philosophical orientation in Kemet. What I question is whether or not this precludes or diminishes the equal orientation concerning growth and difference. I am also questioning the relative accuracy of translating the word as eternal sameness, as eternal reoccurrence, on whether such translations do not severely diminish the Kemetic conceptual balance between order and change, which one writer thus undermines the concept. So secondly, the ontological situation of non-being itself is not simply a threat to being, but also a challenge to overcome it. Thus the creator, the ontological situation of pre-creation as inertness, obscurity and indefiniteness, becomes a field of creative action. For potentiality is in the very structure and substance of existence. Even inertness is liquid, watery and full of possible developments. And darkness, as Alan states, is not so much the antagonist of light as its unrealized potential. That is to say, darkness is light waiting to happen. Likewise, unboundedness is not so much chaos as unstructured and unrealized possibilities of creation. What is needed in such an ontological situation is in order to turn it into a field of creative actions as a creator who has determined the purposefulness, heart and mind, or will, exceptional insight, authoritative utterance, and effective action. As it was for the creator at creation, so it is with the creative person in daily life. For whether at creation or in daily life, it is through these categories of being and becoming that Ma'at is established and sustained. And Ma'at as both an ontological and ethical character, or category I should say, of potentiality and power, is in the very structure and substance of reality. So again, authoritative utterance, effective action, and conceptual insight. These three areas here are very important to us. We need to have conceptual insight, our understanding, and the authoritative utterance, what we believe and what we say, and then effective action, because many of us deal with procrastination. We say we're going to do this and we say to do that, and only end up saying we're going to do this and do that, and that's where we end up, yeah? But we can see here at creation, the creator, remember, if you might notice, every week they speak about, Hatshepsut said earlier that the creator and herself are one. We are the creator, because if we are created by him, his essence is within us. So we shouldn't look into the sky and look elsewhere for the creator, because look in the mirror, you will see the creator. And what did the creator do? The creator had conceptual insight, i.e. he was conscious or conscientiousness. He had authoritative utterance. We spoke with authority. And also, he had effective action. He didn't talk for the sake of just talking. He brought effective action to it. So I think these, again, if you believe yourself, look in the mirror, say you are a God, which we are, because this is African culture here, and we are African people, then we need to adopt conceptual insight, authoritative utterances, and effective action. Because, as the text says, it's not just a thing that God did. These are for actions for humans as well. Okay, so the link between the ontological and ethical here is that being is creative. Moreover, creative action is ethical action, and ethical action is a creative action. For Ma'at is both the product and producer of both. This is affirmed in the highly abstract and seemingly contradictory contention in the ancient Egyptian mythology that Ma'at is both the mother and daughter of Ra. Gardner and others have noted this, but did not see it in anything but contradiction. Therefore, referring to this statement in a papyrus number 5 in the British Museum from the 3rd series, the text says, although that the author felt no compunction in making Ma'at at once the mother and usually the daughter of God. But the mother and daughter theology construct is best seen as a metaphor for producer and product. Ma'at is a producer of Ra, in that it is truly what makes God. In a word, it is the indispensable constitutive element of his being. One writer has early realized this fact and argued that Ma'at is indispensable to divinity. If it wishes to act truly as divinity, so without it, Ma'at, God, is only the Son, the most visible expression, and with it, Ma'at is the master of the universe, which is very powerful there. He's saying without this concept of Ma'at, even Ra is only the Son, but with Ma'at, he becomes the master of the universe. So it's like Ma'at, the concept of morality, order, harmony, it empowers the Creator. And equally, if we adopt Ma'at into our life, it will empower us to do the right thing. As rightness and righteousness, Ma'at then is the very nature of God. Moreover, as the sacred texts teach, Ma'at is the breath of life to God and the other divine powers. Indeed, it is the power of being. But Ma'at is also the product of Ra, in that Ma'at was created by Ra in his identity as Atum. Thus, Ma'at is mother and daughter of Ra, origin and offspring, producer and product. These concepts finds its modern parallel in the concept of humans as both the products and producers of history. For history is essentially a human process that both makes and shapes humans and is made and shaped by them. In a word, humans are both the subject and object of history. And history is both the constitutive of them and constituted by them. Very deep there. So for us, it's saying that history, this is Karenga saying that, for history is essentially a human process that makes and shapes humans and is made and shaped by them. So in a word, humans are both the subject and object of history and history. This is why history is not taught to us, our true history, because history shapes you. So, but we become an object of history. So if the history is given to us is false history, then we become objects of that false history. Hope you understand that. But when you understand your history, history can shape you and make you who you are, who you're supposed to be, not what somebody. Remember, if you accept someone's concept of history, you are shaped and created by that history. This is psychology, by the way. Okay? So this is why it's imperative that we understand our true history, and then we know who we are, and that true history will shape us. But when we accept a fake history, we become fake, because that fakeness has shaped us. I hope you understand that. So 5.2, the creative character of speech. Important also is the creation process, and to the delineation of the potentiality and power of being is the ontological role and power of speech as a creative force. Remember, in this creative story in the Nile Valley, as you know, you can see the Bible copied it. Let there be light, things like that. But you can see this is where it came from. It's much more philosophical. The concept of the noon, which is the water, and God created himself out of the water. He created Tatanen, a mound, and when he stood on that mound, then he created the universe. This is where it comes from, yeah? But the creative force is very important, yeah? Authoritative utterance is very important. So, in the various creation narratives, the creator uses speech to actualize his creation in his identity as Atum. Excuse me. The creator begins a dialogue with the waters in which he is. In effect, remember, he created his waters out of himself, in which he is. And in the process of self-actualization, he conceptualizes, i.e. wishes, according to his heart. And when it says his heart, it means his mind. And thus creates himself. So he thought about creating himself, and then he created himself. Also, he uses the words, the power, which is haka, authoritative utterance, which is hu, and exceptional insight, siya, which develops creation. Heka, Heka, as words of power, is essential to creation, but it seems to function through hu, authoritative utterance. So Alan says the divine principles of creative speech. Moreover, Heka is described by Keti, this ancient Egyptian king, to his own son Merikara as a divine gift, saying, he made for them Heka as weapons to ward off the blow of events. Thus Heka, in this case, and in creation, acts as a positive force, but the central powers of creation and creativity are hu and siya, forming both a conceptual and creative pair of hu and siya, enable the creator to conceive the world and then call it into being. Through siya, he says, remember siya is insight and hu is authoritative utterance. He says, I became effective in my heart, which means his mind. I planned in my heart myself. I created other beings. Then it is in speaking that the creator calls into being his conception. The power is called the one text, hu. Again, hu is authoritative utterance, and speaks in darkness, i.e. the darkness of pre-creation. Remember, there was no light yet. Also, it is said of the creation that he began to speak in the midst of the earth, which was inert. And by this means he created everything. It is in this context that kings and queens as well as private persons sought and claimed such power. The pyramid text of Unas, and it's very important, Unas, remember, the pyramid text of Unas. Unas is the last king of the 5th dynasty, and we find written inside this pyramid the first religious text in the history of the world. It's very important we understand this stuff, because we're not taught our history. We have to teach it to ourselves and to our children. The pyramid text of Unas says, I have seized hu, authoritative utterance. I have taken control of siya, inceptual insight. And again he says, Unas grasped hu, authoritative utterance. Eternity is brought to him, and siya, inceptual insight, is placed at his feet. So you can see these concepts are extremely powerful in our ancient world. I think these concepts we really need to grasp today and understand today. Recalling the divine capacity of the Creator in his name as Ptah, to conceive in his mind and create. Intef, the herald, says he is the one who says, let it be done, and it is done. And the steward Henesu, who says, he who speaks and it happens, one like God. Together, Hu and Siya symbolizes and expresses authoritative utterance and of exceptional insight, and are at the heart of both creative activity and moral practice of Martin ethics. For they are powers which are available to all humans, which is the point I'm making, in order that they may understand, speak and do ma'at, which means speak and do the right thing, and defend and increase good in the world, in a cooperative project and the divine. Text of the Creator in his identities as Ptah and Amen places or place even greater emphasis on creative speech. In fact, it is in the creation narrative of the Creator as found in the Shabaka Stone. Shabaka Stone is a British museum downstairs. It's on the wall. And it's caused one writer to suggest that this may be the background to the Logos doctrine of the New Testaments. For, he notes, in this creative narrative, we find the fundamental assumptions that mind or thought are the source of everything. For the myriads of created things came into being through that which the heart, which means the mind, through that which the heart thought, and the tongue creative speech commanded. The Shabaka text posits the preeminence of the mind, heart, and the tongue as follows. So this is the Shabaka text, which is also called the Memphite theology or philosophy. It's on the wall in the British Museum, and Shabaka was a king of the 25th dynasty, which is really the last golden age from ancient Egypt, from Kemet. And he says on the text that he found the work of the ancestors worm-eaten, and he ordered that it would be recreated again to last for eternity. And he really has, because it's still there today for us to read, yeah? And it says on this text, it happens that heart and tongue rule over all the limbs in accordance with the teachings that he, that's Ptah, is in every body. And he is in every mouth of all divine peoples, of all people, all cattle, all creeping things, whatever lives, thinking whatever he wishes, and commanding whatever he wants. I'm going to read it again for you. This is what it says on the text. It happens the heart and the tongue rule over all the limbs in accordance with the teachings of that he, that's Ptah, God, he's in every body, and he is in every mouth of our divine powers, all people, all cattle, all creeping things, whatever lives, thinking whatever he wishes and commanding whatever he wants. And you see it repeated there again. He is in every body. We need to stop looking up in the sky for God. Look in the mirror, you will see God. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. He is our essence. He is us. And if he had authoritative utterance and insight, same thing we can do. His heart and tongue rules over our limbs. So what we think, what we conceive in our mind, we can do. Nothing can stop us if that's what you want to believe. Moreover, as one writer states, the power of the heart and the tongue comes from the fact that they are privileged organs of conception and expressions of thought. The heart in the body thinks, conceives the idea of everything, the idea which will then be taken up or expressed by the tongue of the mouth. Thus the text says, the seeing of the eye, the hearing of the ears, the breathing of the nose, they inform the heart. When they say heart, remember this means the mind. And it makes all perceptions come forth. For as the tongue, it repeats what the heart has conceived. Which basically is saying that whatever comes out of our minds or comes out of our mouths is what the mind conceived. The text concludes by this section by saying, for every word of God came about through what the heart conceived and the tongue commanded. Theophile Abenga, one of our great scholars from the Congo, he rightly asserts that speech, as it is used here, has a clear ontological meaning. And this ontological speech uttered by the demiurge is like the self-created one who came and created himself, and he had the energy to create the universe. So uttered by the demiurge calls the world into existence. This ontological potency of speech appears also in other African cultures. Excuse me. And Abenga cites the creation narrative of the Luba people. I think this is from they were in Congo. In Maweja, Nangila, called fourth man, who at the time of the creation bore an exact resemblance to him. Here we have not only a logos doctrine, but also the doctrine of the image of God, i.e. we are an image of the Creator, because we are the Creator, which appears in the Ma'atian theology and ethics as discussed below. This becomes then the paradigmic practice of creation and effective action. And lost my space. Here we have not only the Logos doctrine, and therefore it is through this process of conception and command that again humans act like God, linking the intellectual and the material. As Alan states, for it is the same principle through which the will of all living things work to transform the world around them. A praise poem to the Creator in the name of Amen. And I hope you all know that when we say at the end of our prayers, we say Amen. Hope you know that Amen means the unseen one. And it's from the Nile Valley, from ancient Egypt, yeah? Amen also speaks to the power of the created word of God. So when we say Amen in the prayers, we're actually speaking to this African God from the ancient world. And the praise poem says, he began to speak in the midst of silence. He opened all eyes and caused them to behold. He began to call out when the earth was in stillness. His roar spread about. He had no second. He gave birth to all that exists. He caused them to live. He caused every person to know the way to walk. And their hearts lived when they saw him. That's from the Leiden Papyrus. Moreover, the text says that in the process of creation, conceptual insight is his heart, authoritative utterance is his lips, and his energy, his ka, that's his vital force, is which exists through his tongue. This stress on the creative function of speech develops as a central feature of Martin ethics and good speech. It is seen as both moral wisdom and a moral imperative. For the ruler, the challenge is effective ethical action as a leader is to act creatively like Ra, using Hu and Sia. Thus it is said of Ramses II, you are the living likeness of your father Atum. For authoritative utterance is in your mouth, understanding is in your heart, and your speech is a shrine of truth, basically the shrine of Ma'at. And Mary Kara is taught by his father Keti that good speech or moral wisdom is essential to moral and effective leadership. He says to his son, if you are skilled in speech, you will succeed, for speech, literally the tongue, is a person's sword. Speaking is stronger than all fighting, and the skillful are not overcome. I hope you understand that, yeah? Because I think you've all heard of that, the concept that the pen is mightier than the sword. He says here, speech, literally the tongue, speech is a person's sword. Speaking is stronger than all fighting, and the skillful is not overcome. So he's telling us that we need to develop great speech. It's very good to be very, to control language, to understand language, to use the words. Because, you know, some people can use words. Think of songwriters. Think of people who write poetry. People who make great speeches. Think of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the great speeches they made, yeah? They could move people, even today. So, skillful person of their tongue is much greater than guns and bullets, even though those things are needed. Because if somebody's coming with guns and bullets, you need some sort of anti-action to kind of to basically stop whatever those bullets are going to do to you. But good speech is not an exclusive prerogative of the royalty or the nobles. As noted above, the most definitive discourse on Ma'at in the book of Kunanup, which places the task of defining the meaning and value of Ma'at in the mouth of a peasant farmer. So there is a text you may know called the Book of Kunanup, and the Egyptologists call it the eloquent peasant. But the words put into the mouth of this peasant are some of the greatest dialogue on Ma'at, on justice, on morality, on ethics. So, yeah. And good speech, another text says, Pahotep. So the text of Pahotep is supposed to be the oldest book in the world, by the way. I hope you know that the oldest book in the world is written by black people. And it says in this text from Pahotep, good speech is rarer than emeralds and precious stones, and yet is found among the female servants at the grindstone. So he says there, more than once he says that we think, maybe like today, we think that these people go to maybe Oxford and Cambridge are the most wise people, but your grandmother who never went to Oxford and Cambridge could be much, much wiser for us. So, yeah, good speech comes from anywhere. We should look at certain things that we think good speech can only come from one position. Alright, so these citations at once reaffirm the worth of good speech and also demonstrate its availability to and presence among even the masses. This is an important point, for Ma'atian ethical philosophy would lack moral authenticity if it is denied or suggested an unequal access to such an ontological and ethical good as moral wisdom and good speech. Thus, inherent in the Ma'atian ideal is the assumption that good speech is a vital and necessary good for everyone, and that everyone has equal access to it for beneficial purposes. Again, this ideal of equality is attested to for the good deeds of Ra text, which establishes the ontological and ethical standard of human equality. Such rejection of biological assignment of moral worth and good is, as mentioned above, a stark contrast to Greek ontology, with its class and gender bias hierarchies for human worth and purpose of virtue. So distinction he's making here is that when we read the Ma'atian ethical thing, there is a equality that all people have the ethical human standards. Everyone has the access to it and can do it. Whereas when we look at Greek ontology, it's really gender-based, men, and class-based, obviously the rich against the poor. So human worth, and also today's world, biological assignment of moral worth. As you know, some people's melanin in their skin, they look down on. Yeah, we wouldn't see this in the ancient world. Everybody had access. There's equality of virtue, a quality of good speech, but maybe following the Greek ideal now, gender-based, hierarchical-based. They say human worth is based on certain things. In the ancient world, it wasn't really that. Really, it depended on who you were, what you did, who showed your worth. Yeah, I think Martin Luther King says we should be judged on our character, on the content of our character, which shows you again it's really got kind of Ma'atian ethic more than the colour of our skin. So you can see Martin Luther King and Ma'atian ethics are one and the same. It's important to note here, though, that speech in Ma'atian ethics also carries with it the possibility of misuse. The emphasis on the moral imperative to speak and do ma'at carries with it the prohibition against speaking and doing the opposite, i.e. isfet. For isfet is falsehood and associated with evil. Isfet is the general oppositional category to ma'at and signifies all things bad and impure, as ma'at suggests all things good and pure. My apologies, bad and impure is isfet. So to speak wrongly then is injurious to ma'at and the moral community which it gives life. Thus, I'll tell you what comes to my mind, for some reason I don't know why, Donald Trump comes to mind. But let's move on. Thus, one ancient writer, his name is Hebor. He teaches us, this is an ancient chemic test, do not make your mouth harsh or speak loudly with your tongue, for a loud voice does damage to the body, just like an illness. Something you're saying, shouting and doing the wrong thing. Moreover, Kunanup tells Renzi is the high steward who was judging him. Kunanup is like the kind of humble kind of farmer. Kunanup says to Renzi that when the secret of truth is found, which is secret of Ma'at, when the secret of truth is found, falsehood is thrown on his back on the ground. That one who lessens falsehood fosters truth. and that judges are appointed to fight falsehood. He continues saying, when falsehood walks, it goes astray. It does not cross in the ferry, and it does not progress. He who is enriched by it has no children, indeed no heirs on earth. And he who sails with it does not reach dry land. So he's saying people who have bad speech, things don't work out good for them. They don't have bad lambs. They don't reach dry land. They don't have a boat to cross a ferry. They have no children. So obviously they can have children, but they're saying, I think it's the kind of thing that karma, what goes around comes around, yeah? It's good to have positive speech, truthful speech, that was like air to the nose. So surely his boat does not moor at the landing place. Thus he concludes one should speak ma'at and do ma'at, for ma'at is a ground of a good and a long life in this world, and honoured and eternal life in the next world. The central conception in this affirmation of the power and potentiality of being, then, is the self-creation by the Creator, the God who brought himself into being, and then made himself into millions. Thus, self-developing God contains within himself all the elements of creation, and thus from inside himself, he comes into being and brings into being all things through creative thought, speech, and effective action. This portrait of eternal potential and power is painted even more vivid in a more vivid imagery when the Creator recounts how he arose alone without anyone to aid him and with no place on which to stand, and then again through creative effort he makes a place, he locates himself, he centers himself upon the primal mound of creation and brings himself into being, a universe of millions and millions of things. Very powerful. So from his mind he created somewhere to stand, and once he did that he was located. It's very important that he's located, he had his own center. He locates himself, he centers himself upon this mound. And this is what Afrocentricity is as well, guys. It's very important that we center ourselves. We understand who we are. We center, we're grounded. And from where we're grounded, we can move forward. If we're not grounded, we'll blow around in the wind like leaves. So this portrait of eternal potential and self-actualization in the midst of non-being provides then an instructive image of the possibilities of human action and human agency. It is the image of self-cultivation and self-transformation, of finding oneself, within oneself, the moral and spiritual content and will for creative transformation and actualization. For again, being or be in like God is being like God in action. And repeatedly we read that the spiritual aspiration is to be like Ra in power, in knowledge, in life, in health, in endurance, in righteousness, in the world, in Ma'at. Thus the book of coming forth by day, the vindicated, i.e. the one who's judged to have been done good in life, did Ma'at in life, and then was granted a safe arrival in heaven. The vindicated clear their aspiration and ability to act as divine power, saying, I stand up like Horus, I like a god. Beloved son and avenger of my father, I sit down like Ptah, i.e. the creator. I have grown strong as Jehuti, that's wisdom. I have grown powerful as Atum, that's Ra as a perfecter. Such exalted claims, while appearing to be bombast, to some scholars, reflect on another level an anthropology of ultimate possibility, a conception that invites elevated aspirations to be as God and one with God, and as we've discussed further down there. So what he's saying is, some people, when they say, I am like the Creator, I am like Ra, I am like Duty, they say, no, these people just being basically boasting and showing off, But what is Korean Century says that what they're saying is, I want to be like the Creator, I want to have wisdom, I want to be the perfecter, So these are good. These are aspirations. So I've dealt with at length with the question of potentiality and the power of being, because it is a pivotal ontological concept and provides a background and framework for a critical comprehension of other fundamental motives of Ma'atian ontology. Moreover, the category of potentiality is also so central to Ma'atian anthropology and Ma'atian ethics in general, and that a lengthy treatment of it seems to be compelling. So we are just going to be winding up now. I hope you really enjoyed this one today. It's very important that we understand who we are, and by studying these books, Ma'atian ethics, we can see who we are, because we can see what we did before, and we can see what our potentiality is. Please do not look up in the sky for God or the goddess, because in Nile Valley, everything was male and female. The noon, the water which the Creator came out of, had male and female entities in there, and came out from that. Okay, so if you want to see God, you need to look into the mirror, and we can have authoritative utterance, insight. We have the creative powers. We can have wisdom and knowledge. It is all inside of us. What we think we can create, just like the Creator, because the Creator within us. Okay, so that is the end of another Afrocentricity show for 1 week. Hope you enjoyed it. Yep. I'll see you again next week. Have a great week. I'm going to be winding down now. So thanks a lot. Yep. This is the Afrocentricity Book Show. Remember, it is every Sunday between 4 and 6 o'clock. And I'm going to catch you again next week. You have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. One love.
You gonna cue me, or you gonna tell me when the vibe going on? Or you just gonna set it up? I was just waiting for those horns. Should be coming soon, right? What you feeling down for? No, I like that. Just vibing right now. Don't be sad. Open your eyes. The sun is shining. The angels are dancing in heaven. You hear me?
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up. Listen, Father God, in your name I pray. Help the people find their way. Better days are coming by and by. We can make it if we try. Come on. Wake up the people, Lord, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Wake up the people, Lord, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, people, wake up now.
Wake up.
Father God.